beetles. It needs all the beetle trapping material it can get. Oh, you want to feel this? Why don't y'all all come over and pick that up? I mean, that's not a deep full of honey, but it's got some honey. Okay, so when you're working bees, you need to, part of it is appropriate posture and, you know, getting yourself prepared to handle it so you don't hurt your back. Use your legs, use your arms, your shoulders.
And the weight changes most drastically based on the amount of honey.
Uh-huh. Not another, I mean, you can actually gauge whether or not your hive needs to be fed in the winter time by just approaching the colony and tilting it. You can just tilt it on the backside. You can tell whether or not they've eaten all their stores or not. Or likewise, whether you need to feed before winter. Okay, so we're gonna get this out of your way.
Okay, that's pretty heavy. Honey, you need to get a bee suit.
So a gallon of honey weighs
You gotta keep it
12 pounds.
You're doing it for these actions.
Close to it, 11
Yeah,
and
that's
3/4.
Pints a pound the world around, huh?
So it's half again as heavy as water.
Yeah.
Water's 8 pounds to the gallon. All right.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to leave that there for a second. We're going to take our empty comb. Now, we've been pounding away on this hive, so let's see what it's like when we go into it. My bet is that they're going to be a little bit aggravated with us. Okay, so you don't stand in front. You always stand to the side. Put smoke on the entrance. And again, I'd done the same thing with this hive. I've been using it to incubate some cells, so this queen excluder was on there. I'm not sure this hive is strong enough to spare a comb of brood, but that's not a bad thing for us to evaluate while we're going along too, okay? Let's just take a look. Now, you don't have to do it this way. I'm just going to tell you what I do. I like to take this comb out, the second or third comb from the edge that I'm standing next to. Why that? Well, you can get a straight lift on that without any trouble. That's just a dry comb. There's nothing there, right? So, the brood nest must be further over if there is one. There we go. Now, we were talking, remember that first colony that we looked at? How the brood was laid solidly? There weren't any skips or anything? Well, this is sort of like the opposite of that. You want to pass that around? See how scattered and shotgunny that brood looks? Well, it can be a poor queen. It can be a hive that's out of resources, and this hive doesn't appear to have any honey at all. It's about to starve to death, I think.
So they really don't intermingle. I mean, the hives, you don't have bees going in one, getting food, come out.
No. In fact, if that happens, there's going to be a problem. They're going to fight one another. So what would I do here? What remedial steps should I take as a good beekeeper for this hive?
Add honey.
Add honey, absolutely. Or sugar syrup if you don't have honey, right? We can get some syrup and put in that feeder. Because they literally didn't have breakfast this morning. They don't have anything to eat. Part of the problem is I've got several hundred colonies packed in here in this very small space.
Right.
So if a colony gets out of whack, it's very difficult for it to, it doesn't have as abundant of resources available to it to fix the problem itself. Now this brood's better, okay? So if I still seen problems with the brood, I'd want to judge the queen harshly, but I can already tell at this juncture that the main thing wrong with this hive is it just doesn't have anything to eat. Okay? So when the colony doesn't have anything to eat, you even start getting, all right, we got the queen on this comb. Who's seen her?
There.
Nope, that's a drone. Scan the comb. You got her.
Yep, there she is.
Okay.
Coming towards you. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to put her back in there so that she doesn't get lost in the shuffle. But move this around, because what I want you to see is there are 2 or 3 larvae here that are discolored. Okay, there's one of them, right? So it's malnourished, okay? And when they get malnourished, they can succumb to brood diseases that they wouldn't normally be affected by. So that is European foul brood, okay? And I got to have it tilted back toward me. It is, where'd it go? Right there, okay? You can see it's not pearly white. It's going to be more of a yellow, kind of a pale yellow tan color.
What do you do about that?
Huh?
What do you do about that? Nothing? Foul brood?
It'll probably clear up on its own once they get some food in the hive. If you have a serious problem, you have a lot of it, my typical remedy is to re-queen the hive. I tend to blame the queen for brood diseases just because I don't want to inadvertently select for hives that easily succumb to brood diseases or develop brood diseases. I want bees that are tough. All right.
So on the feeding,
So we're not going to move brood from this colony into the other colony, right?
Right,
it's-
because it's poor.
Oh, down low, the white.
It needs all it can
Yeah.
get.
So they're capped.
However, I will say that if the colony were even in worse shape, and if they were, because they can get to the point where they're starving to death so much that they'll actually chew the brood, they'll parasitize the brood. They recognize that they've overcommitted. There's no way they're going to successfully rear the brood that they've started, and they'll
They eat
start
it?
chewing it out and they'll eat it. If we were seeing that in this colony, I'd say go ahead and move one comb over, because you're actually doing them a favor. You're getting rid of some of the hungry mouths. You understand what I'm saying?
So you should put a comb in here that has honey on it.
Absolutely, we're going to go do that.
But it'll have bees from the other colony.
It needn't. Why would it need to?
No, I'm asking. So you make sure you get all the bees off of it, and then you put it in.
That's the better practice typically. Although
Okay.
sometimes, I mean, if you can find the queen, as long as you're not moving the queen over, sometimes it's helpful to move over some baby bees.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to drop this on the ground.
Now, which color did you say indicated malnutrition?
Malnutrition and/or the brood disease, European foul brood. Okay, they go hand in hand. So there's actually a few of them on here. So I got to find one that's easy to spot. Okay, this one I'm going to tick that cell. That's got it. You see that? Got it? Pass that back around, because everybody else was looking at a different one. Give them a chance to see that too. All right, so all of a sudden we have got to get help for 2 hives, right?
You guys want to sit?
You all seeing that?
Marked up there? Yeah. And they look dry and not good.
so on feeding, I've seen ratios of like 1 to 1,
Uh-huh.
1 wet to 1. I know it's sugar to water, but is it
Volume or weight, either one works.
okay? So like 1 gallon of water. to
1 pound of sugar to 1 pound of water.
Okay.
Water and a cup of sugar.
So it's 8 pounds of sugar to 1 gallon of water. You don't need to make it that thick. You can get away this time of year with like half that, 4 pounds of sugar in 1 gallon of water.
Where does this guy go?
It goes back in that hive. Now by contrast, this hive is hungry. Okay, take a look. It doesn't have any honey either to speak of, but look at this brood. And if you look at this larva, okay, you're not going to see, go ahead, I want you to handle it. You're not going to see the European foul brood. This colony has just enough more honey in here that nobody's going hungry, okay? Doesn't have a lot, but they're not starving.
And you're not seeing a lot of beetles in this hive, huh?
That's right. So here's what happened, you know, and this is what beetles are so hard to contend with, is that colony became queenless. It attracts hive beetles when it's like that. They recognize that it's vulnerable and they move in.
Huh.
And then they have an aggregation pheromone. Once the beetle population reaches a critical size, they're even more attractive to other beetles. Because it's sort of like, you know, the block party that got out of control, you know, just feeds on itself.
So we run into different problems with several of these. So you have the beetles in one, and the malnutrition or
Right.
or lack of.
Oh, and we haven't spent time looking for eggs, so we're going to use this comb as an exercise in egg finding, because it's a nice one for that purpose. I want you to know how to do that. It's a critical skill to have. All right, so there are eggs right in this sector, okay?
Okay.
Not in the cells that are sealed, obviously, but all around them. They're embryos. They're like miniature grains of rice stabbed into the bottom, okay? Not quite vertical, but almost, like sort of like that. All right? Look for that when it gets around to you. And again, we don't have to see the queen in this colony to know that it's queen right now. Okay? We've seen
A bunch
eggs.
of fresh stuff.
We're wondering what this little red thing is.
Oh, that's a queen cell cup.
Oh, that's where she was made.
Oh. You put that there.
Or inadvertently it ended up there, one of the two. Most of the time we don't start hives with queen cells. We rear our queens in mating nukes, which are little